If you struggle with drawing ponytails, I really suggest one of the things that helped me the most is actually drawing lines that varied a lot in shape. And this is just to get my brain to think in a two-dimensional way, because once my brain starts thinking in three-dimensional forms, it's almost like game over. So this probably looks really chaotic to you right now, but watch when I connect all these lines in an S curve. It seems random at first, but there's actually a flow to it. And I'm actually also making up curves as I go. And this is what a ponytail essentially looks like in a flat view. If you can make your ponytails look good at this stage, you can easily turn this into a 3D form later. Shape is two-dimensional, form is three-dimensional. So if you were to turn this into a 3D form, basically think of these like little cones or cylinders, or more like partial cones. And to actually draw this in 3D space, you draw the ellipses in the certain perspective that they're in. So right now I'm just drawing some ellipses that are slowly turning away from me. And to make things easier, I look at my drawing that I did on the left here. Now this might be a little bit hard to visualize, so that's why I recommend doing this first. And once you have the ellipses, all you have to do is just connect the dots, but more like you're connecting ellipses, and then they look like tubes. And then here what I like to do is I actually like to draw a little cross to show the direction and the perspective of the cylinder. Now I'm not as good at drawing cylinders and ellipses as Colton is, but I think he can say that this doesn't look too bad. And it kind of starts looking like a ponytail. Isn't that crazy? Let's do a few more. Let's just draw some ellipses and connect each ellipse to the next. And notice that I'm actually making some ellipses a lot smaller to create a more dynamic shape. So what I noticed in my drawing was that some of the ellipses are kind of evenly spaced apart, which isn't necessarily what I want. So to make things look a little bit different, I'm going to maybe push some ellipses a little bit closer together to make a more interesting looking form. And something that I just realized is that you can actually draw other things like even snakes this way, because they're all just a bunch of tubes, stuck together. And then so on and so forth. So if you can think of your ponytails like this and just draw a bunch of cylinders connecting, or just draw a bunch of ellipses and connect them all together, you got a ponytail. Now this of course changes depending on the type of ponytail. So we're going to cover straight, wavy, and messy. Now before we get into drawing the different types of ponytails, I just want to show you how you can easily connect ponytails to spheres. I think this is a really good exercise for if you don't really know how to think in 3D space yet, and I'm all for thinking in 3D space because we're trying to create illusions, right, when it comes to drawing, and we want to make it fun. So we're basically just going to put a bunch of weird ponytails on this sphere here. We're going to imagine this as a head, and I'm going to draw some circles, or ellipses, I should say, because ellipses are circles in perspective. And then I'm going to use the same technique and draw another cylinder, or not a cylinder, another ellipse away from it, and then I'm going to connect it. This is a very short ponytail. In fact, this is basically like a little cartoon version of a ponytail. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now, on the other side, we can't really see the ellipse, but we can kind of imagine it. So maybe this ellipse is on the other side. We can't see it, but it's there. This is called draw through, where you're drawing things that you wouldn't really normally see on the other side. And then I will draw the other ellipse and then connect them all together. So this is facing us. This is facing away from us. So I'm just going to make this a little bit lighter. And if we want to, we can even connect one down here and draw another ellipse, another ellipse that's turning away from us. So this is really important to understand directions and cylinders in different angles. One of the exercises that I love doing, just on my sketchbook or even on this kind of canvas, is actually just drawing a bunch of cylinders rotating away from me or in different directions. So as a cylinder is turning away from you, the ellipse starts getting a lot narrower, and as it's facing you, it starts becoming more like a circle. So then you can basically just draw a bunch of ellipses. Maybe that's, what if one is coming towards you? So maybe I'll draw one that's facing us a little bit, or you can even do something like this, connect it like that. Maybe we'll have another cylinder that's facing towards us, and then you got to connect those cylinders as well. And if you practice doing this, you're going to be able to draw this pretty well. But that's more of just like a little option or a little additional tip. The teacher that I learned this exercise from lovingly calls this the bendy straw assignment, so I think that's really fitting. And then, we can add another ellipse and have it curve down and curve back in. And ponytails is essentially just a bunch of S and C curves, right? This is not a very dynamic shape, but that's okay. If you want to create a more dynamic shape, understand that there's dynamic curves and static curves. A static curve is when there's not a lot of acceleration in the curve. In fact, the apex of this curve is directly 50-50, 50%. However, if I make a curve that's maybe at like 70-30, where this is 30%, this is 70%, the curve looks a lot more dynamic and the curve looks like an accelerated curve. So that is just more additional tips that you can think about when it comes to drawing ponytails. All right, enough of those exercises. Let's get straight into, straight and all the different types of hair textures. So a straight ponytail is basically a cylinder that turns into a cape. So you'll see that there's this big apex right here, and then it suddenly flattens. And then you automatically see like this kind of cape-like shape. I don't know what is going on with this ponytail, but I see it in my own hair because I have straight hair. And so I'm just like, wow, it actually just turns into a cape. Now this is a very big simplification. If you want, you can just turn this into a flat ribbon like this. In fact, I think simplifying to ribbons is a lot easier because it's just a lot flatter. Turning this into a cylinder, it won't be as big of a problem. So I would say start here. If you want to attach it to like the head, for example, basically all you have to do is draw a sphere, and maybe we'll draw June with a straight hair. Whoops. Maybe we'll draw one of our characters, June, as with the straight hair ponytail. And basically, it depends on where you want to place the ponytail. You can place it high or low. As it reaches the higher point, it's probably gonna reach past up here, or over here, or even over here. These points would basically be considered high ponytails. Medium ponytails is where it gets up to here, or even here, and low ponytails is when it's close to the neck. So this looks horrible right now, but it's whatever. I'm going to draw some bangs. I'm not going to cover bangs too much in this video, but if you want me to cover how to draw different types of bang styles, please let me know in the comments. That'll be greatly appreciated. So here, I'm going to decide, this is my sphere right here, and I'm going to start connecting, or I'm going to draw an ellipse of where I want this to connect. And actually, the thinnest point of a ponytail is actually where it's being tied to in the, with the hair tie. So keep this very small, and then I'm going to draw out a cylinder. Now, the interesting thing about ponytails as well is that there's actually a crescent moon shape. It turns from a an ellipse to like a crescent moon shape, and it kind of connects like this. And you'll actually see that this is the underside. So if I draw another ponytail, the underside of the ponytail is actually a little bit curved, and this side is a bit more bowed out. So you actually see this crescent moon shape. That's another way that you can think about ponytails. I'm probably cramming a lot of information in your brain right now, so hopefully this is still useful and it's not boggling you down. But anyways, I'm going to take that shape right here and draw that little crescent moon shape, and immediately drop it down, and then turn it into that cape. I like to think of the bottom of the hair in 3D space as well. So I like to simplify this into kind of like a cylinder, as if it's wrapping around a cylinder. And you can even think of it as like, swooping cape. Like if I drew, her in side view and the wind is blowing in her hair, we can draw an S curve like this and then continue that shape. So this is the top part of the ponytail. This is the bottom. And then it flips back and forth, and there's hair blowing in the wind. So this is one way that I really like drawing ponytails. I decide where, what kind of ponytail do I want. First, is it a high ponytail, a low ponytail? Is it going to be a medium ponytail? And then I also, decide like, okay, what length of ponytail do I want? Do I want it to be really long? Do I want it to be really short? And we'll cover those different lengths in a little bit. If you want to draw like a wavy haired ponytail, I'd say one of the best tips that I've come across is thinking of it like a slide. So I'm just going to draw very even curves right now. Now this might be what most people think of as wavy, because there's just a bunch of S curves mixed together. Actually, let me draw this a little bit smaller because I tend to draw too big sometimes. Let's do one more take. There we go. So I deliberately made all these curves very even. They're all the same height and they're all within the same kind of bandwidth. I don't know how to say it. And it runs the risk of making the hair look too sterile because it becomes a pattern rather than making it feel natural and fluid. And if you were to think of this as a slide, this will be a very boring slide. It'll just be like, meh, you know, little stick man, meh. In fact, an even more boring curve is just like that. And the reason is because it just looks very slow and there's no acceleration to the line. Think of like the person riding on the slide. Are they going to be like, whoa, this is a crazy slide? Or are they going to be like, this is the most boring slide I've ever been on? So really keep that in mind. If you want to make a more interesting curve, really, once again, think about the apexes of different curves, right? Maybe I want this curve to be shorter, so therefore it creates a different height, so the curve ends up looking more exaggerated. Maybe I want this curve to be a little bit slower. And then as it gets wavier towards the bottom, maybe I will, accelerate the curves and make them a little bit closer together. And then curl it up. So if I were to imagine this person on the slide, they'd be like, ooh, this is a little bit better. But if I were to make it even more crazy, I would add some twists. So this is just a bunch of lines right now. In fact, this does not look like he's impressed, so I'll just be like, yay, meh, yay. And then if I want to turn this into a more interesting slide, I would have to turn this into a three-dimensional form. So once again, just thinking in ribbons. So I'm going to make this ponytail a lot thicker, create that crescent moon shape, create that different apexed curves, and then I'm going to twist the strand. And once again, I'm keeping every curve or every section of the hair, from thick to thin, because that creates a dynamic shape. So think of it as also like, leaves, which we'll explain a little bit later. Maybe this one will come out a little bit thicker and then it starts twirling. Let me just do this a little bit better. So if you want, you can think about the 2D shape or the line version first and then add the forms on top. Add the other side, and all of a sudden this feels a lot more of like an intense swimming pool ride or like a water park ride. So this will be like, whoa, crazy, I'm having a blast, I'm gonna fall off the slide if I'm not careful, right? And so that feels a lot more interesting. Now if we were to draw this on a person, we're gonna basically do the same thing. So I'm going to take another one of our characters, and it's going to be Tira, because she has naturally wavier hair, but she has more elegant curls. And with elegant curls, now this is more for a hair down version, but elegant curls appear straight on the top, but then it gets a little bit wavier towards the bottom. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to draw in her face really quickly. I wish I could speed draw this, but whatever. In fact, I should have just drawn like a very simple chibi version of her. Makes the drawing a lot easier, simpler to draw. Anyways, once again, if you want me to cover bangs, please let me know in the comments. Or if you want me to just cover hair types in general, I would love to do that. You'll actually notice that when I'm drawing the waves, I'm actually thinking of the same exact concept, but it's not a ponytail, it's just a hair strand. So I would say even hair strands follow this kind of concept right up here. So in this one, I'm actually going to do a side not a side ponytail, a lower ponytail. So like a medium hairstyle, medium hair ponytail. So a medium ponytail is probably going to be around here, and it's still going to have that nice curve up here. I think every ponytail, unless it's fashioned a little bit differently, will have a very, very high point. So I am going to decide it's going to be up here. So I'm going to place my little ellipse right in the back, and then, in fact, I wanted to come out a little bit further. I wanted to come out. So with with ponytails, you really want to see this apex really fast. It's kind of boring to see it very slow like this. That's a very slow looking ponytail. Now, if that's what you want, do what you want. But I like a lot of speed, so I want to immediately go into this triangular shape. And once again, I'm thinking top of the ponytail, bottom part of the ponytail. You see that crescent moon shape right in here, and then I can decide if I want this slide to be, you know, have a lot more twists and turns, or have a lot more waviness to it, or have a little bit of volume. So I could add more volume or more dynamic shapes by adding another strand along this gesture and have it come into the hair. Another thing about teaching hair and ponytails is that a lot of whenever I draw ponytails, it's very intuitive. So sometimes my explanations might not be the most helpful, but I hope that this can be some sort of help for you. But this is basically the best way that I can explain wavy hair, is just basically just like thinking of things as rides or as slides. Now that rhymed. So there's a wavy ponytail. Now if you want to draw a spikier or messier ponytail, think of leaves. You know those houseplants that are in a vase like this, and then they kind of just sprout out, and they're a bunch of thin leaves that come in and out, and they're kind of bushy? That's kind of what a messy hair or messy ponytail is like. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that your hair is going to look like this. I'm going to draw like one of our other characters, Miki, because she has a ponytail. Not to be confused with just a pineapple head, although that would be super cute as well. We don't want that unless that's the hairstyle that you want. Usually we're going to go for a little bit longer. So instead, I would say practice drawing leaves. So I would say look at a houseplant, look at anything like grass or even, and look at the leaves and how they turn. Once again, these are just going to be very similar to ribbons, and a lot of it is just going to be a lot of triangular shapes. There's going to be that nice flat shape down here. I'm going to continue using those S-curves, and I'm going to taper it. Now, another thing about ponytails is that depending on the hair type or hair cut, most hair strands kind of come to a point. That's just very dynamic because we got this thick to thin to even thinner point, and that makes the shape a lot more interesting to look at. Of course, you can also do this with very we can do this with straight cut hair like June's, but most of the time you'll see a lot of points in hair. That will make the acceleration of the line feel a lot more interesting. And all you have to do after that is add a little bit more sprouts. So add some new seedlings or add some new sprouts to the mix. Usually I like to add them at the base of the ponytail and some on the outside. And really you want to keep in mind of the silhouette of the ponytail. You really want to make it feel spiky, make it feel messy. In fact, you can even put little offshoots of hair outside from the silhouette. So that makes it feel a lot more spiky, a lot more extroverted. And so let's draw another example here. I'm going to make this a lot smaller. And I'll put her to the side here. So I'm just going to draw a sphere. I always start off with spheres for heads. Once again, if you want me to do more head tutorials, I would love to do that. Just let me know in the comments. And if you like this content, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. And once again, we're out here to show you how to have fun with learning art. Because if I'm going to be honest, a lot of art classes are kind of boring. So I'm going to try to make it as fun as possible. So I'm going to do a simple head or simple eye this time. And I'm going to add some messy bangs. And another thing with ponytails that I did not mention yet is really paying attention to the bulk or the bulge of the hair, especially the where the hair is being tied to. I'm going to show you a side view version. So for side view, you'll actually see the hair bunching up at the top, going along the scalp, and then it ties into the ponytail holder. So you see this bulge right here because as it's being pulled back, some loose hairs might fall off or bunch together. And then you'll also see a lot of hair being connecting to one point. So think of this as like perspective lines, or think of it like a ball of yarn. You'll notice that a ball of yarn has a lot of texture depending on where, how the yarn is being woven. But in this case, it's being the hair strands are being tugged into one single point. So it's unlike a ball of yarn where most of the lines are kind of like parallel. The lines will be directed to a point. So you'll see thick to thin. So really keep in mind of this texture right here. And I'm going to add that right in for Miki right here. This is Colton's character, Miki. And if you join in any of our live streams, you'll actually see a lot of these girls often because I draw them a lot. So now I'm going to use the, I'm just going to think of drawing the hair like plants or shoots. So I'm going to start off with a very high arch. And I'm going to start flat. So this is my first part of the ribbon. This is going to be my second part of the ribbon. And I, once again, will think of volume. So I also think about how long or how short this is. I want it to be about maybe this short. And so once I have my main shape, which looks, fun to me, in fact, I want to add a little curl right here. I'm going to add some shoots right at the base. And usually these are a lot shorter strands that kind of, think of it like these leaves are making way for the big strand. So like, you got these small leaf henchmen, and they're like, well, I can't really draw this. They're like, yeah, we're cool, but you know who's cooler? This big boss behind us, right? And then they're like, well, make way for the big grass. Whoa, add some little faces, and he's like, ooh yeah, I'm gonna beat y'all up. Anyways. I'm just having fun here, and I want you to have fun too. So I know I sound a bit goofy, but I don't care. So once you have these little sprouts that make way for the big sprout, then you can add in some, hair strands that are a little bit messier. So that means shorter strands that come outside of the silhouette. Down here, up here, and you'll notice that even though that they're going away from the silhouette, they're still following it to some degree. There's still some rhyme and rhythm to the hair strand. Like that. And that's how you can do a messier ponytail. Now, of course, there's multiple types of messy ponytails. Some ponytails can just be as simple as spikes, and depending on how your hair is cut, usually the ends are longer than the beginning of the ponytail. So if you want like layered hair, keep the strands that are inside a little bit shorter and make it gradually get a little bit longer. You have this type of ponytail. If you want like really, really, really short ponytails, it's going to be just a really tiny C curve. And of course, this can end in whatever way that you want. You can end it at a point, or you can end it like a little bush, like a little cylinder bush thing. So you can draw that whole cylinder method again, but instead add a little texture on the inside to show that this end here is a little bit flatter. So it looks like a little brush. So to finish things off, I'm going to draw one of our characters, Miki, because she has a super cute ponytail, and I'm going to show you how to apply these concepts and make it look gorgeous. But before I draw her, I want to announce that we also do live streams on YouTube and TikTok. If you want to follow us on TikTok, go to the link in the description and follow us there. We stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. We do a bunch of fun stuff with our community, like live tutorials, Discord community art shows on Fridays, and so much more. So subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our TikTok if you want to be a part of these streams. So with that out of the way, let's draw our lovely, lovely Miki Biki, the nickname that one of our Discord members gave her, and now it's basically canon at this point. So this is Colton's character, and I am just drawing a little face. If you want to draw or learn how to draw heads, go check out the Learn to Draw Anime Heads in 15 Minutes. That's a beginner tutorial where I teach you how to draw heads step by step, just like this. I started off with the sphere with a center line that's leaning more towards the side here, and I drew the eye line and a bit of the ear. I'll probably color this really roughly. Now I'm also going to be making a hair shading tutorial, so be sure to check that out, and I'll also put that in the hair tutorial playlist, so be sure to check that out if you want to draw everything that is related to hair and get better at it. So right now, all I'm just drawing is her eyebrows, and which are pretty thick, and I'm not really going to go too much in depth with features and all that stuff, but I will make a video on that later on because I think that this is something that a lot of people struggle with. So right now, all I'm just doing is marking out my proportions and I'm drawing all my features in, like the eyes. I love starting with eyes because it's just, it makes the drawing look a lot more complete. So once we have that all done, I want to erase some of these lines because they're kind of distracting me and I want this drawing to look really pretty. So messy lines I kind of want to get rid of. I gave her a little winky face because I think that's super cute. Once again, not an in-depth tutorial about drawing heads, but I just want to draw a really pretty picture real quick. And I'll just give her like a little face that's a little bit cheeky. So she has kind of like a little triangle for the face. Not face, for the mouth. And then I'll add a little tooth because that's her lovely personality. I'm going to shade in the top of her eye as well as the pupil. I'm going to combine the two. And now let's draw in her hair. I am all for drawing the hairline. This is just a quick little guideline to drawing hair really nicely, making it situated onto the head nicely. And then I draw in the bangs. I like to group my bangs in big, medium, and small shapes. That just makes things a lot easier. And I always make sure to push the hair out of the scalp to make it look a lot more voluminous. And then I draw on the side strands. And at this point, you know, this is where people kind of struggle with when it comes to ponytails because they're like, okay, well now I got this part. Now how do I actually draw a ponytail attached to it? So once again, draw that little bulge on the hair. You know, as the hair is being tied, there's going to be a bump that separates the bangs from the back of the hair. And I would draw the shape of the hair first. Shape is more two-dimensional, form is three-dimensional. Sometimes I'll accidentally say 3D shape instead of 3D form. What I mean is 3D form. That's part of the slip-ups that I make sometimes. And so once I had this shape in here that is not attached to the scalp, you actually see that the hair itself and the scalp there's actually a bit of cushion. So really keep that in mind to make the hair a lot more fluffier. So the hair is kind of like a fluffy helmet. It's not sticking exactly to the scalp because it grows out and then comes, well, this is a bad example. The hair comes out straight. You'll notice that when you cut your hair, the hair is out very, very straight. And then it curls downward as gravity pulls the longer hair strand downward. So that's just a little tidbit right there. So another thing that I like to do to get the ponytail shape is actually just draw the S curve. And I always like to keep in mind of the apexes of the curves. So this is similar to how I did in the beginning of the video. I make the beginning part of the ponytail really, really tall because if I don't make it very tall, it's going to look kind of limp like this. And we don't want this kind of ponytail, at least not unless you really want it to be. I really like a strong S shape that starts really strong and really high, and then it bows out, goes in, and then curls up. And I think that's actually a really cute looking ponytail. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to thicken it a little bit. So this is the second curve that I'm going to put in. One thing about ponytails is that ponytails are not exactly parallel like this. Once again, too parallel, there's not enough acceleration in the curves. Instead, what you want to do is you want to draw one curve one way and then draw another curve completely differently, but following the same gesture, because we want to make sure that the end of the ponytail ends at a taper. But anything before this can vary in thicknesses. You'll see that the thickest part is towards the beginning. I made it towards the beginning because I feel like that's where a lot of the volume is. And then as it gets towards the end, it gets thinner and thinner. So there's this kind of gradual, well, if it first comes out really thick, it goes from thin to thick, and then it gradually slows down to a thinner curve until it gets to the thinnest point. So that's what I'm going to be thinking about. So I'm going to show that a little bit in here. So I'm going to put a little curve down here. This is to show the 3D form of it and actually show the volume of the hair. I'm continuing to think about the overall form, right? The crescent moon shape. Like that. So I made this curve really small because I want big positive space, small negative space. And then I'm going to taper the end like this. So we have this really high arch followed by a very thick area of volume in the hair, and then it gradually slopes down to a nice little S curve. So that is my very, very basic hair shape. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add some volume. So this is where I'm going to think about the crescent moon shape, or the crescent moon formation. That sounds so militaristic. That crescent moon shape where you see the inside and the outside of the ponytail. So to do that, I just draw a line indicating the top and the bottom, like that. So this is the bottom side of my ponytail, this is the top side, and this is very, very arched. So in order to show that arch, I like to add some hair strands that follow this form. Now, this is not to be confused with just drawing a bunch of lines like this. You know, it's not a banana, right? This is supposed to be very subtle. We're supposed to start from the base of the ponytail right here, and then most of the lines will actually come from this point, and then it fades off into the distance. So drawing these lines will really help with showing the acceleration of the curve. And then I'm going to add in the little sprouts, and once again thinking of the ponytail like, you know, ribbons. So we have the top side, the bottom side, and a little flip. To make it more voluminous, I'm going to add some extra strands outside of this main ponytail strand, and even adding some on the inside right here and on the outside, so it creates this like dynamic shape, like in, out, and I really want that in this kind of ponytail. We can even add a little bit of negative space, but that's more of just a personal choice. I personally love to add some extra strands on the outside just to add more volume. I'm going to add a little tail at the end just to show how the hair is flipping back and up. And there's a very, very simple ponytail. You can even continue this line right here and go down and show that maybe the top side is right here. This is the inside. So we describe the inside of the hair a little bit more. So if I were to shade this in really quick, this is what the inside of the hair, or the inner part of the hair, looks like. And then this is the outside of the hair. So now that we have this really lovely drawing, we can color it and clean it up. So I am going to lasso this out, delete that, and then just erase all these little bits and bobs and all these messy lines. Once again, I'm not going to be going in depth about coloring hair or shading hair, but I will be making a video. If it's not already up, we'll send you to that video. I know that hair rendering is one of the things that people struggle with a lot because it is complicated, but it can be done. If you want to add a little bit more detail in the hair without coloring it, you can add some hatch marks or hatching lines where the hair is curving down in space. I find that, you know, hatching hair like this actually shows the texture of the hair really well. Makes it for really nice looking hair. I also like to thicken the inside of the bangs, like at the bottom part. That's called line weight. I'm not going to cover that today, but maybe on another video we'll cover how to draw better lines or make your line work look a little bit nicer. And you can see that I'm not like refining it, I'm just cleaning it up just a little bit and just adding a little bit more to make the drawing just that much more special. And even add some up here. So now let's color. I created a color palette for the skin, the hair, and the eyes. Very basic colors, nothing too complicated. I'm not going to go super in depth with how I choose my colors, but one day I will make a video on that, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to add another layer up here, and this will be underneath my sketch. So I named my top layer Mickey Sketch, and I'm going to name this layer Color. And this is going to make it so that if you never used layers before, this is super helpful because if you have your color layer underneath your line work layer, you're not going to color over the line work. So you can see that the line work is still visible, but if I move this layer up above the Mickey Sketch, then, you know, as you can see, the line work disappears. So put your color layer always underneath your sketch or line work layer. Anyways, in the color layer, I'm going to be using a hard brush. This is a very opaque brush. I think it's just a basic round with a bit of pen pressure. And all I'm really doing right now is just filling everything in very messily. Once again, you can color this however way you want. I think this way works best for me because I tend to noodle a lot, and this prevents me from going too detailed too fast. So I make everything messy and then I clean it up later. So while you're watching me do this, I do want to say that if your dream is to create your own webcomic or manga, but you don't really know where to get started with learning stuff like anatomy, backgrounds, perspective, drawing clothes, and all of those kinds of things, well, you're in luck because we have a huge online school that teaches all that stuff and more. So to find out more, go to the link down in the description to check out Anime Art School, or go to drawanimeacademy.com. All the information is on there. There's previews of all the classes, and you can download the syllabus for each class and see tons of artwork and assignments to get you to draw your stories the way you imagine them. So back to this drawing, you can just see here that I'm just filling things out and filling in all the white spaces. In essence, all I really did was erase everything out really messily, and then all the white spaces I'm just filling back in. Once again, you don't have to do the way I'm doing it. If you have a more efficient method than the way I'm doing it, totally, kudos to you. I'm a very practical girly, more like a lazy girl. So whenever I do art, I just do it in the most primitive way possible and just call it a day. And I've just learned to do that basically all throughout. So once again, nothing too complicated here. I'm just using the eraser tool and the brush tool just to fill in those colors. And in the meantime, I'm also going to fill in white for the whites of the eyes, and also erase the line work for the nose because I want the nose to be more of like an implied shape using the white tone. And then afterwards, I'm going to fill the eye in with the purple color. Finally, for the last part of the base colors is I'm going to fill in this dark reddish pink for the mouth, and then I'm just going to color in the tooth. And that is pretty much it for the base colors. So after that, I'll add in some really quick shadows and highlights. Now it's time to shade. I'm using the magic wand tool to select like the skin color. Since all of my layers are on the same layer, it's hard to color things separately, but with the magic wand tool you can get a pretty accurate selection of the area you want to color. So I have my tolerance at 15%, which just makes me select a certain color with more accuracy. So as you can see here, I'm just coloring in the skin really simply with my shadow color, and I'm only adding in shadows in areas where the hairs overlap in the skin, or areas like the inside of the ear and below the neck. And then I'm going to add in the shadows for the eyes. Now I already colored in the shadow, which will actually make it extra dark, especially when it's underneath when my color layer is underneath of the line work layer. So I didn't really need to do much here. In fact, I think it's a little bit too dark, but it's okay, it's whatever. I colored in a lighter color for the highlight, and then for the bottom part of the eye, I added a light pink to make things look a little bit nicer. For the shadows, I'm marking them out on the bottom parts of the bangs. Since my light source is towards the top, anything that is going away from the light is going to be in shadow. So that usually means the bottom parts of the hair strands and stuff like that. And I'm also using the shadows to separate out the inside and outside parts of the hair and ponytail, so you can see me doing that here. And I'm not too worried about being super accurate with my shadows. My main goal is to show the form of the hair and keep it super simple. And I'm also treating the sides of the hair like this, like a sphere. And then I'm going to add some extra little strands on the top, or extra bits of shadow, just to show the texture of the hair. For the highlights, I'm selecting lighter parts of the hair with the magic wand tool to separate it out, and I'm coloring the highlights like blobs first. I know this kind of looks ugly, but trust me on this. So after I have the highlights where I want them, I'm going to then use the base color and carve into the highlights to create really unique shapes. So I, maybe make some shapes bigger than others. Sometimes I separate out certain parts of the highlight, and this is just to give the hair a little bit more of a smoother and more fluid texture. Now, of course, I'm going to be explaining all about where I put my shadows and highlights for hair in the hair rendering or hair shading video. This video is long enough, so I'm not going to go into too much depth with explaining it, but right now I'm just tweaking the shapes a little bit and making them look a little bit nicer. To finish things off, I'm just going to add a quick little blush with a soft brush here, and there we go. So there we have it. Miki is all nice and done. She looks so pretty. And if you've reached this far into this video, thank you so much for watching. You've done a lot. Honestly, slay. So here's what we did throughout this whole entire video. We talked about ponytails in a flat view versus a three-dimensional view and how to construct it, how to attach a ponytail to a head or a sphere, straight ponytails, wavy ponytails, messy ponytails, how to construct it in a very simple way, and hopefully that this broadened your perspective on how to approach drawing hair and ponytails. Once again, I'm going to be making more videos on hair and shading hair and all that good stuff, so stay tuned for that. And as always, be sure to like this video and comment on what you liked about this video or did not like about this video, and or what we could improve on. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Another thing is to check out the links in our description for Anime Art School if you're interested in that, as well as our TikTok channel and our books if you want to support us that way as well. And we would love for you to hop in on one of our streams, whether if it's on TikTok or YouTube. We once again stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Let me just pull this up because this is a much cuter picture than just seeing what I just drew here. So once again, we stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific. If you're new and just want to say hi and join a wonderful art community, be sure to comment on the YouTube chat. That would be lovely. We would love to see you there. So anyways, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.